잃어버린 채 외면하는 것 같아. 참을 수밖에 없어. 눈을 감지만. 마마 이제 내게 대답해줘. 왜 사람들이 달라졌는지, 아름다운 시절이라는 게 존재하긴 했는지. 이제 더는 사랑하는 법도 잊었고, 배려하는 마음도 잃었고, 등을 돌린 채로 살아가기 바쁜 건 익명의 가면을 감췄던 살이 가득한 짓이 끝을 봐도 배고픈 듯한. 이제 만족해. 우린 더 이상 눈을 마주하지 않을까. 소통하지 않을까. 사랑하지 않을까. 아픈 현실에 다시 눈물이 흘러. 바꿀 수 있다고, 바꾸면 된다고 말해요. 언젠가부터 우리 스마트가 우리 자발적으로 갇혀 영과 일로 만든 뒤틀은 인격을 맡겨. 여긴 생명도 감정도 따뜻함도 없고 원어 쓰레기만 아닌 그는 삭막한 벌판. 날이 갈수록 외로움만 더해져. 우리가 인간일 수밖에 없는 건 상처받는 것. 손을 잡고 돌이키고 싶다면 우린 더 이상 마주하지 않을까. 소통하지 않을까. 사랑하지 않을까. 아픈 현실에 다시 눈물이 흘러. 바꿀 수 있다고, 바꾸면 된다고 말해요. 죽고 죽이고 싸우고 외치고 이건 전쟁이 아니야. 도와줘요 마마마마마마마 선백. 깨닫게 마마마마마마마 롤백. 막고 치고 뼈를 나누고 싸우고 이건 게임도 아니야. 도와줘요 마마마마마마마 선백. 삶에 허락된 축복받은 날들을 감사하고 매일 새로운 인연들을 만들고 깨져버린 마음에 보다 깊은 사랑을 모두 함께 웃을 수 있다면 우린 더 이상 눈을 마주하지 않을까. 소통하지 않을까. 사랑하지 않을까. 아픈 현실에 다시 눈물이 흘러. 바꿀 수 있다고, 바꾸면 된다고 말해요.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Sunday School. I am Alastor Ashfall from Hellspawn Resources. If you're unfamiliar with what Sunday School is, it is your educational opportunity to learn about something, let's say, heretical that your HR departments don't want you to know about. This could be anything from, discussing pay issues to strategies to talk to your bosses. There's a lot of things that are covered under Sunday School. Today we're going to be talking about some of the deadly sins. Specifically, we're going to be talking about greed. But before we get started, I want to ensure that we all initiate our Sunday School lessons with the Hellspawn Resources Liturgy of the Ledger. To do this, place your left hand over your forehead and your right hand over your wallet and repeat after me. VERBA VOLANT, SCRIPTA MANENT, PRAEMONITUS, PRAEMUNITUS. For those of you new to the congregation, I am Alastor Ashfall. The liturgy translates to: spoken words fly away, written words remain. Forewarned is forearmed. I am the founder and CEO of Hellspawn Resources, and unlike the mortal incompetence likely running your people ops or HR department, I am also a certified HR professional. I have about 80 years in Heaven's HR department trying to instill soul equity, to get the Seraphim to adopt Feedback Fridays, and through all of that, I was rewarded with 12 years of falling through the 9 circles of hell because I asked too many questions about the leadership dashboard. Now, I run Hellspawn Resources. It is a refuge for radical transparency and a little bit of fun and chaos. But without further ado, let's get into our lesson here. And I do want to offer you all the opportunity to go ahead and ask any questions that you might have through using that link up at the top. So, if you are all ready to get started, let's delve into the sin of greed, but specifically, not your greed. You wanting to pay rent isn't greed. It's just survival. We're talking about corporate greed. That boring, banal evil that steals minutes from your life and calls it budget optimization. So let's burn away the bullshit, shall we? So, I appreciate a good heist. In the 4th circle of hell, I am from the 6th circle, but I visit the 4th very, very frequently. There's a shrine to this guy named James Burke. He's the guy who pulled off the Lufthansa heist of 1978. Essentially, it's a statue of him sitting on top of a pile of cash and jewelry, looking all smug and proud of himself. But what your employers do on an annual basis makes that heist look like pennies by comparison. So, I want to talk about wage theft. Wage theft costs about $50 billion a year towards American workers. This is not American workers stealing from their employers. This is employers stealing from their workers. According to the Economic Policy Institute, that's minimum wage violations, unpaid overtime, tip stealing. It costs American workers roughly $50 billion a year. Now, that might seem kind of arbitrary, but let me put that into perspective here. Bank robberies, gas station stick-ups, home burglaries, car thefts across the United States every year cost about $14 billion a year. So, I want to say that, the amount of damages that average theft and average crimes cost generally cost way less than the amount that is being stolen by you from your employer. Now, I know the critics are going to say things like, Alastor, surely that number is made up. The Economic Policy Institute must be exaggerating. Well, let me put this into even more perspective here. The EPI aggregates the data from major markets, specifically New York, Chicago, LA, and they calculated when you combine minimum wage violations, unpaid overtime, and off-the-clock work, the total comes to a staggering $50 billion a year. And honestly, that study is just from 2014 and only with some major metropolitan markets. With inflation consideration of the whole US and the invention of gig work since then, the real number is likely much, much higher. So we're using conservative estimates here, and even the conservative estimate still dwarfs every form of theft. That theft figure is from the FBI statistics within that source from the Economic Policy Institute. Quick note before I keep going, I am going to link this presentation for everybody to see on all of my socials. So if you want to research this yourself, take a look at it yourself, you can see all of the sources I use. But anyway, a $50 billion heist, that's, at least in Hell, that's an achievement that takes about like 10 Earth years, and it's like super celebrated. But here in the mortal realms, that's just an annual performance target for, you know, the bigwigs upstairs. But the worst part is, you probably thanked them for the opportunity to work while they were picking your pocket. Now, let's get into another form of corporate greed here. Let's talk about promotions. These are some of the oldest tricks we have here in our Hell Employee Handbook. Essentially, your boss calls you in, they say, congratulations, we're making you a manager. You get a shiny new title, maybe Director of First Impressions or Lead Sanitation Manager. But according to a, whoops, hold on one second. I'm still new to this, there we go. But according to a working paper by the NBER, or the National Bureau of Economic Research, this is a scam. The NBER was founded in response to a lot of income inequality controversies in 1920, and they found a massive statistical spike between 2010 and 2021 in fake manager titles that pay exactly just above the federal overtime threshold. Why is that? To trigger the exempt trap. By essentially classifying you as salaried exempt, they avoid having to pay you overtime. For example, Family Dollar Store's 2008 class action suit alleged store managers worked 60 to 90 hours weekly doing manual labor. This is like stocking, cleaning, registering, unloading trucks instead of doing managerial duties. One tool I want to arm you with from the mortal plane is the FLSA duties test. What is this duties test? It's a little checklist of sorts for essentially asking whether or not your role should be salaried exempt or should be hourly non-exempt or even salary non-exempt. But essentially, there's a lot of exemptions to this. You can see them all here that are listed. You might be like, well, that's almost like every single job. It's every single job with specific, what am I trying to say? With very specific parameters within each one. So not every single job out there is exempt from the FLSA duties test, but certain jobs within those areas do have exemptions. But a good way to kind of have a rule of thumb here is if you can't fire, hire, or make independent decisions without going above, somebody else's head. If you're doing the same grunt work as the people you supposedly supervise, you're not a manager. You're a victim of fraud, essentially. And you're owed back pay. And let me tell you, we demons love back pay. It's so sweet when the mighty and arrogant have to meekly give you a handful of money and say, sorry. It's like a bully being told by their parent to give back the thing they took from you. It's really nice. But I did want to also point you towards this chart here that I made for reference. It essentially represents the normal frequency of manager titles, like the gray bars, the dip right before the threshold, which is called strategic avoidance. Essentially, in a normal sort of economic system, this would be the place where, they say, okay, we're not going to tip the hand over into salaried exempt necessarily. But then The red spike represented that 485% increase in manager titles at exactly the $455 a week salary mark, when companies can legally deny overtime pay. So a little helpful visual there for you to understand just how you're being screwed. Now on to the martyr complex. So one of the cited reasons I was terminated from the Celestial Administration Office was because I engaged in something called unpaid emotional labor, among many other things. But I burned out and I fell, so don't be like me. The ADP Research Institute, ADP, if you're unfamiliar with who they are, ADP offers a bunch of services and data statistics for generally HR teams, but also teams like finance and administrative, all the way up to like CEO and executive stuff. They are a huge player in the business and executive world here in the mortal realms. So they track things like the global workforce, and they have a annual report called the People at Work Report. The People at Work Report. And in 2023, they found that the average worker essentially donates about 8 to 9 hours of unpaid time per week. Now, again, to put that in perspective, that is about an entire workday just given away for free by you all. Now, I know your boss is going to say, well, Alastor, I know what your boss, booting up your computer is just getting yourself ready for work. It's not work itself. That is wrong. I want you to write this down. It is the incantation 29 CFR. Let's see. Here it is, right in front of your faces there. 29 CFR, section 790.8 of the Portal to Portal Act of 1947. It states that any activity that is integral and indispensable to your principal work is compensable. Essentially, if you cannot do your job without the computer, booting it up is indispensable. If you cannot answer calls without logging into the server, logging in is integral. The Supreme Court ruled similarly on this in a court case called Steiner v. Mitchell. Essentially, it is, if the activity is part of the work, the clock starts when you start the activity, not when you finish it. Now, there are exceptions because just like every single rule out there in terms of employment law, there's an exception. Something to note is that as of right now, commuting to and from your job, like from home and to work, is not considered compensable time. Now, if you were to commute from like a workplace to another workplace, that is considered compensable time. It's a really weird situation. Essentially, it provides a lot of caveats and exceptions to various different things out there. So just know that the system is not in your favor, but knowing about the system and all of the exceptions gives you the power to manipulate it in your favor. Let's move on to the next thing, and I want to pause just before. Okay, we have no questions yet. That's fine. I want to talk to you about the confidential pay lie that is out there. One thing I really like about Hell is that there is total transparency here. Everyone here knows exactly why they're here and what it costs them to get here. Here in the mortal realm, companies rely on this confidentiality lie. The Institute for Women's Policy Research reports that nearly 50% of all workers are either prohibited or discouraged from discussing pay, and about 60% of private companies are trying to gag you from speaking up. They tell you things like it's rude or that it's unprofessional. Reminder that this is a lie designed to keep you cheap. Memorize this spell right here that I have for you. It is the NLRB Section 7. This covers employees in so many different industries. Essentially, though, It grants you the federally protected right to engage in concerted activities for mutual aid, and discussing salary is explicitly protected in them. So, if your handbook says something like, it is illegal to, discuss salary, or concerted activities like are not or are prohibited, then your handbook is illegal under federal law. Now, you can do things like, report it to the NLRB yourself. I included a handy little button that will take you to a guide on how to report something like this to the National Labor Relations Board. Or better yet, feel free to send it to me. I love writing letters to the Labor Board. It's kind of a fun morning ritual while I doom scroll and drink my coffee. Something to note, there are exclusions. Again, they're the most popular answer in law and in human resources is it depends. So whenever somebody comes to me with saying, hey, is this illegal or is this unethical? I always answer, it depends. Just like that, there are exclusions. There are exclusions for different types of industries and different specific types of employers within those industries. So I highly recommend that you read up on Section 7. I've linked it here just so that you can go straight to the website and do your own research there. So, that is the presentation for today. We have covered most of what is considered, the worst of corporate greed here. My temp assistant is starting to make some noises that suggest he's either hungry or he's found the shredder again. So I should probably attend to that and remind him that you are not allowed to touch the shredder. I have cited a lot of data today. If you want the receipts, all of these studies and all of this stuff will be linked in the description of this stream and this VOD. It's going to be on all my social channels. Knowledge is power, and you need more of it. Your homework for this week is simple. First, I want you to audit your pay stubs. Assume that your employer made a mistake in their favor. Never assume that it's just a simple mistake. Log your time. Even if it's just a quick call or just opening your email for a second, log it. It is time worked. Otherwise, you are being robbed of it. And 3, ask a coworker what they make. It's going to feel awkward, but do it anyway. Take your power back. So go now. Observe, document, and remember our guiding principle. Praemonitus, praemonitus. Forewarned is forearmed. Class dismissed.
Lives, all mortal lives, expire. Souls go to their dooms in flame forevermore.
Hell has its laws. Hell. Effect and the cause. Curtain falls, but hold your applause. Squirm, for now down here come the claws.
Lives, all mortal lives, expire. Souls go to their dooms in flame forevermore.
it's all been for naught. True souls that couldn't be bought, doomed, detected, and caught. No more deals, it's over. The final act, you're doomed. No more grace, it's over. This house of hope. You're